explain like non-compete and everything? We're with 6 Magazine.
Okay.
I don't know if that'll interfere with what you have going on. We'd like to get an interview.
That's fine.
Okay.
So it's on online magazine.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Cool. So some slack.
Yeah, I'm trying to without killing myself. Kenny, will you do me a favor and open it really quick? Okay, thank you. Big guy, so I get a little one last wipe for the interview.
There you go.
Okay. You ready? Yeah. Okay. Claude Claiborne with 6 Magazine here with Chris Fowler. How you doing today?
I'm fantastic. It's a fun event here as Nike unveils the Pro Combat uniforms. It's good to see the 10 schools. It's good to see the new unis. I think players are going to like them.
Oh, yeah, I definitely think they're going to like him too. Now, how does Chris Fowler get ready for a college football season versus the regular guy? Because you're who everybody looks to, you know.
Well, I'm kind of like I'm the traffic cop, so the other guys kind of come on camera and give their opinion. My stuff is more information driven, so I promise you it's not that exciting. It's just a lot of hours up late reading stuff on the internet, reading as much stuff as I can get my hands on. It used to be pretty easy to prepare for game day by comparison because the fans didn't know as much. The fans didn't have access to the kind of information they do now. You could be ahead of the game by just going online and this crazy thing called the internet and reading some out-of-town newspapers. Now, of course, fans are so dialed in 24/7 to their teams. It's really a challenge for us to tell them something they don't know. So it means more work and less sleep than we used to get.
Now, one thing about this year coming up is there's so many early cross-sectional games. LSU, North Carolina, Alabama, Penn State, Miami, Ohio State. It seems like more in the last couple of years. Is there a particular reason for that?
I think there need to be more. If you're satisfied with that many, I'd like to see even more. I'd like to see more teams have the guts to step up and take that kind of a challenge, the way Boise State and Virginia Tech and LSU and North Carolina and Oregon State and TCU have done the first weekend. Because if they didn't, the card would be pretty miserable. And I love this sport, and I love when people dial in for the season and when it starts with a bang. And I don't like the fact that far too many schools refuse to take a risk. The 12th game in college football's regular season has just meant one opportunity to line up a cupcake to make some money. And I like when the teams have the guts to step up and challenge themselves. I like to see a lot more teams do it. You know, I mean, it becomes a situation where they take place in pro stadiums, you know, like the Redskins Stadium and the Cowboys Stadium and the Georgia Dome and stuff, because these cities put these games together and coaches look at them like a recruiting tool. So they feel like there's something they can get out of it besides just taking a gamble with a tough opponent. But, you know, it's a very conservative approach now when it comes to schedule making. And I think that the weakness of college football is that, you know, there is no centralized, concerted effort to schedule, man. I mean, you get these weekends where it's like people are all pumped about the sport, and there's not that many great matchups. When you're competing against the NFL, it hurts college football. I mean, I'd love to see, you know, the kind of matchups where every weekend contains a handful of big blockbusters that have people buzzing and talking instead of like, I'll take a week off. Nothing really grabs my attention this week. It's too bad.
Talking about tougher schedules, what is your thought on BYU going independent? What do you think about that?
Well, you know, I'm not close enough to the program to analyze the business aspects of that decision. I got to say it's a little bit surprising in the way they did it, where it get leaked out. They were thinking about it. Now we're staying, and now on the deadline we're out. And our other sports are playing in a conference other than the Mountain West, but we're going to be independent in football. Hey, I mean, independence has worked for Notre Dame, although some argue that they've been better off being in a conference. You know, BYU, to me, is an attractive school for teams to pick up. I thought it would have been an attractive team for the Pac-10 to pick up if they wanted to expand to 16 teams. So I wish them well. I mean, BYU is always going to have a global following. And I think it's always going to be a strong football program. I like what they've got right now. The presence is very impressive there. And we had a great time in Provo when Game Day took the show there last year. So I know that teams will be pumped up to get one last crack at them in the Mountain West. I've heard from the TCU people. And when the Cougs come to Fort Worth, as if they needed any more motivation, TCU will be pumped up because it's kind of the last game with the Cougars in the conference.
One last question. Everybody's high on Ohio State. You know, teams like that, Alabamas of the world. Can you give us a sleeper this year that's maybe in top 10, top 20, even unranked right now that really can show us something before the end of the year?
Yeah, I mean, there are teams that are a little bit on the edge of the radar. I mean, Auburn is one of those teams that built positively in Gene Chizik's first year. Nobody's really talking about Auburn. All the focus is obviously on their rivals from Tuscaloosa. But I think the opportunity is there for Auburn. I think that LSU has got some serious questions. Arkansas is a threat. The SEC West is much tougher than the East. But if Auburn can get a few things to break their way, the non-conference schedule is very manageable. Auburn might be a team that will surprise at the end and play people a lot tougher than they're expecting. Right now there's really no national title contender from the Pac-10, the Big East, or the ACC. People, when they view those three conferences, say they got a lot of depth, they got a lot of good teams. They don't have a team that's capable of making a run at a national title. But if one team can put it together, and whether it isn't Oregon, which I think will still be very good without Masoli, whether it is a Stanford, I think it's unlikely, but I think that it is possible that a team out of the Pac-10 could surprise and get up in the top 5 or 6 because there's plenty of talent in that conference. And ditto for a team out of the Big East. Let's say Pittsburgh can go on the road and beat Utah. I think the schedule falls okay for them. I think the opportunity is there if they can have the kind of season they expect to have to maybe be in the mix as well. But, it's a dangerous thing to pick sleeper teams because you're only really foolish. You can pick a team to be a sleeper team and then go to sleep, and they'll be like 5 and 7, and everybody remembers those predictions. So.
Okay, great. Now, is there anybody in the ACC you think can make a run at the title?
The ACC title or the national title? And the ACC title is going to be a free-for-all. As anybody knows who follows that conference, you can go from last to contending in your division. And I think the depth in that conference is impressive. I cover a lot of ACC games on Thursday night the last few years, and, man, it's exciting because the games are close, the teams are evenly matched, and you never know what to expect. And I think it's the same this year. You look at Miami, and I think Florida State's going to be very good, and Virginia Tech's always going to be good. Georgia Tech, the defending champs, have a lot of people back, and Paul Johnson's got that program rolling. Carolina, with their talent, facing the question marks they have as well. And I think a lot of people feel like BC is a sleeper team. Clemson is a little bit of talent. That's just a really, really tough, deep conference with very few automatic wins. And, in the past, it's been a conference that has kind of a defensive tilt. But that could potentially be shifting, I think, with offenses at Florida State kind of looking better than they have in Clemson and Miami. I don't see a national title contender out of there because I don't think the Hurricanes can navigate that schedule. But if they pull a couple of upsets and play great on the road, they'll be in national title contention. I just think it's going to be a fun conference to watch week in, week out.
Well, thank you for your time, Clark Claiborne, 6 Magazine,
My
here with
pleasure.
Chris Fowler. Thank you. You have a good day.